is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Andrew Castle.
All right, listen, let's get into this cladding crisis that I've been talking to you about. £5 billion to ease cladding crisis. Third story, Sunday Telegraph this morning. Always happy to take the chance to talk about this because I know people who are stuck in these things. A, they can be dangerous. Possibly. You don't know that. B, they're unsellable. Now, if you're trying to sell a flat and move on with your life, you'll understand the frustration. Also, who's going to pay when the cladding is taken off and replaced? When's it going to happen? That weight of not knowing sits very heavily. Also, insuring, your property. What is the situation when it comes to that? Some insurance companies are insisting, as I understand it, on 24-hour security and fire patrol. So, all of this costs money and it's borne by the residents. It doesn't seem fair. Those things were signed off. They were built by building and development companies, according to government regulations, who then, you've got building inspectors come in and say yes or no. The one group of people whose fault this definitely is not is the people who are the victims of this at the moment, which is those who are living in their flats. Whether they're renting or they're owning, there just is too much uncertainty. So, news today, a £5 billion fund to pay to strip the cladding from hundreds of thousands of unsafe flats could be announced as early as this week. That's a £5 billion fund. It's a lot of money. Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, held talks last week with Robert Jenrick, the Community Secretary, about agreeing a deal to fund in full the cost of removing dangerous cladding. Listen, even if we start this now, when is it actually going to get going? There's only a certain amount of scaffolding. This is a very, very big job to get up above 15 and 20 metres on scaffolding. The rules and regulations around that are not exactly minimal. And then, of course, you've got to get all the blokes scampering up there and putting the poles up, constructing it, getting rid of this cladding. Where do you get rid of it? Who's going to pay for the disposal of that? Because that costs the world right now. I want to speak to you if you are involved in this area, especially perhaps if you own a flat. Firstly, Malcolm Tarling is with me, a spokesperson for the Association of British Insurers. Malcolm, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm trying to outline something extremely complicated and very, very worrying. How am I doing? What are the issues as far as you're concerned?
You're doing very well, Andrew. As you said in your introduction, this is not fair. It's absolutely not fair on those leaseholders who are stuck in buildings which are unsafe, and they're naturally very worried. And they're also, in some cases, faced with significantly higher insurance bills. Now, no insurance company wants to charge premiums of the level that we've seen in some cases. But the actual reality is that if you're living in a property that incorporates dangerous cladding, as we tragically know, you're much more at risk of fire. And insurance is based on risk. Insurers have to charge a premium to reflect the risk. So we need to get this dangerous cladding off of buildings as quickly as possible. We can do that, then that can be reflected in insurance costs. But we will be the first to say that we understand and sympathise with the predicament of many leaseholders. So let's get moving. Let's get the cladding off of building much more quickly than has happened to date.
Is there anything that you can see as you read this story which suggests that this cladding is going to come off buildings any quicker than it was going to before this announcement?
Well, let's hope the speculation that you outlined actually turns into reality, and let's hope that more money is made available to get dangerous combustible cladding off of buildings and make these buildings safer much more quickly. We would support and welcome any movement in that direction. Absolutely.
I'm having a look at some of the detail of this, Malcolm. What do insurers need to see now to insure a building? Is that an EWS 1 or EWS 2 form?
Yeah, there are a number of things that insurers want to see. They want to see steps that, as far as possible in the current climate, are reducing the risks. So documentation that shows that buildings are as far as possible, as safe as possible against the fire risk. And insurers, wherever they possibly can, will be working with the building owners, looking at ways and steps that can be taken that can reduce, not eliminate, of course, but reduce the fire risk that in turn can can be reflected in the costs of insurance. But I would also say that leaseholders who are the victims and who are trapped in the middle here of a very worrying and concerning position, they can do something as well. They should be talking to the building owners, if they've not already done so, to get the building owners to work with their insurance brokers to do everything they can to see what cover is available in the insurance.
But to get this one, to speak to that one, and they're not in, and because of COVID and the safety of our employees, you've got to press 5 for this and 7 for that and 10 for this, and you're waiting an hour to get through. I can just imagine, Malcolm. Listen, all the best. Appreciate you coming on. I've got somebody directly involved in this. That's William Martin, co-founder of the UK Cladding Action Group. William, good morning.
Morning.
I'm very glad to be talking about this. How are you involved in this? I believe you own a property that's affected.
Yeah, so my property's got dangerous cladding on it and lots of other non-cladding related stuff that are as equally as dangerous, and we're facing bills of £52,000 each, £6.2 million for the building in total. We have a £7,000 a week waking watch, and we haven't been able to do anything with our lives for the last 3.5 years.
Say that to me again. £52,000 for what?
£52,000 each for everyone in the building to make good the problems in our building, and that totals £6.2 million worth of work that needs to be done, which is not covered by any fund out there at present. How
long ago did you buy this flat?
So I bought it in 2015. A week after Grenfell, we found out we'd got ACM cladding, the same type of cladding as Grenfell. And then last year we found out we'd got missing cavity barriers, failed insulation. The list goes on, you name it, we've got it. And there's not funding out there for us. So we're stuck in this miserable situation. And every week we've got £7,000 worth of waking watch going on.
Was the building new? When you
no.
Okay, so it wasn't built. So the cladding was put on at some time by a company. Did they satisfy all legal requirements at the time when they put that cladding on?
No. So the report that we've got says that the cladding, the insulation and the cavity barriers all didn't meet regulations at the time.
Has that report been accepted by the firm that built the building?
They have absolved themselves of responsibility and are not even recognising the fact that their part in the building of the building.
And this was an independent report put together by experts, was it?
Yeah.
Okay, and so the building firm, are they still in business? The building firm who are responsible for the building?
They are, and we're still trying to get them to engage with us. But I mean, it's they're not under any obligation to step in and help us, and. We're out of the warranty period for insurance, and so our building is not unique. It's there's buildings like this across the country that are in this situation where freeholders and developers have kind of moved on or
that is notoriously what happens, and there's a slight renaming of a company, and suddenly, like a phoenix from the ashes, here it comes again.
Exactly.
Minus some of the debt. Not always the case, but it can happen. So who should be footing the bill for this building, which was put up and that you bought, and now you're paying all this money for it, and is unsellable and presumably unmortgageable as well at a reasonable rate, which is the other thing. When it comes to remortgage, how are you going to do that? This is an unsafe building. You're staying on a high rate, mate, and you can just continue. All of these sorts of things. Who should be paying for this to happen?
The polluter. The person who caused these problems. I mean, the developers out there have made billions of pounds since Grenfell, and we believe that the people who caused this problem, who built these buildings, and who ignored regulations or didn't follow them, should face penalties. They haven't to date, and there is some inclination that some are coming forward and saying that they will, but we need them to step up to the table and really, recognise the scale of this problem. We're not asking solely for taxpayers' money, but we certainly shouldn't be made to pay. We are the innocent party, as you said, in this. We believe firmly that it should be the polluter who pays.
But you're not going to be able to chase these guys.
Absolutely not.
You're not going to be able to chase. There's no chance that you're going to be able to chase them. You need a very, very heavy fist
which is why
getting after this lot.
Exactly. We need that's exactly why we need central government action. We have been campaigning for 3.5 years for this to be sorted out, and each step along the way, another sticking plaster has been announced. I don't want to sound ungrateful for what is rumoured to be coming. £5 billion. Obviously, it's a very large amount of money, and we would welcome that. But the evidence is there that suggests that this problem is going to cost £15 billion to fix. We can't just keep adding on these extra bits of money. There's a quote out today that says that Whitehall has got no hostility towards our campaign, but that there's a certain concern that if we give them an inch, they'll want a mile. We just want to make our homes safe and move on with our lives, and we shouldn't have to pay for the mistakes of other people's in the past. It seems like they're dragging their heels, and that quote there is symptomatic of the government's approach to this problem since Grenfell.
Yeah. How many people are in your position?
Well, there's an estimated 700,000 that are actually stuck in cladded buildings. Then we've got an estimate of 3 million people who are caught up in this scandal, if not many more. It's miserable. There's so many. And the other point that you made earlier was about how fast this comes about, regardless of money's been announced. We've still got 150 buildings that are privately owned in the UK with the same type of cladding on as Grenfell. The progress is just far too slow.
And you're in one of them.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous. I mean, it is utterly nuts. And I just don't know where the firms are going to come from to get that scaffolding up in very practical terms. I mean, it's just got to come off. And my sympathies, I can just imagine the stress that you guys have been through. That's William Martin, who's co-founder of the UK Cladding Action Group, 0345 6060 973. I'll take your calls, Alex and Bob, next, and others on the cladding crisis.
Andrew Castle on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
2 minutes past 9. Appreciate all your calls on cladding, as it is announced that there could be, as early as next week, an announcement on a £5 billion fund to get this cladding off the buildings. It was not the fault of the residents in any way. Building firms, developing firms, people who signed off on these buildings, people who supplied the cladding in the first place, somewhere lies liability. And it is certainly not the people who are having their lives shattered and put there's such pressure on their shoulders. All they want to do is get on with their lives, and they're stuck, and it's not their fault. So I'll take your calls, 0345 6060 973. Alex is in Ipswich and Bob is in Clapham. Alex first, good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Have you got one of these things?
I do, yeah. So my building is surrounded by cladding and, like Will mentioned earlier, also has other fire safety defects.
Right, and who are you chasing for this? Are you still living in yours?
I'm still living in my dangerous apartment.
God. How long ago did you buy it?
I bought my apartment in 2016.
Right, and you had absolutely no idea that this was dangerous, and the survey said everything was fine.
Exactly, survey was absolutely fine. I had no idea up until November last year.
Yeah, and when you got the news, what was it that you were going to have to pay for? To have this cladding removed yourself? You couldn't get insured. You can't sell it. What is the situation for you?
Okay, the initial news was that I would have to pay for a 24/7 waking watch, and for me that is £300 a month. And then the next news is that I'll have to pay for a new fire alarm system.
Oh, I see. How many flats are in your building?
Okay, there's 80 flats in my building.
And how much is the new fire suppressant system or sprinkler system? How much is that going to cost?
Okay, combined, the fire alarm and the waking watch is £12,000 each for this year.
£12,000 each. So it's £1,000 a month extra.
Correct.
That you have to find. So you've got to earn 16, 17 grand just to pay for. I mean, that's pure extras.
Pure extras, and it's never something that I would ever plan for. I went to a mortgage advisor before buying this apartment. They would never advise me to take on this kind of extra cost.
No, of course they wouldn't. And when it comes to remortgaging, you're not going to get the best rate, possibly. When it comes to trying to sell, presumably you can't.
Yeah, I tried to sell last year and it simply wasn't going to be possible.
I'm sorry about this. What's the next step? Have you seen the story today in the paper? Which one was it? The Telegraph, about this new fund, the potential of a £5 billion fund. I mean, is that cause for optimism or not?
It increases the chances of being successful in gaining the funding, but there's still going to be so many other buildings who will not be successful, and leaseholders will have to find the money.
And are you well organised with your fellow residents in this building? You're all in the same boat together. Have you got sort of, groups, meetings together going on? Are you emailing each other? Have you formed a community around this?
Yeah, so actually it's possibly the first time that as residents we have really connected and worked together. And we've also set up Ipswich Gladiators, which forms 1,600 leaseholders affected by this scandal.
I'm really sorry you're having to go through this, Alex. It must be an unbelievable strain and very, very difficult to relax at any time. I can just imagine. Take care of yourself, Alex. Thanks for calling.
Okay, thank you.
All the best. You see, the situation is just not right, is it? So it is right that Rishi Sunak and Robert Jenrick get onto this, which is what they appear to be doing. But we're going to watch this story, like a hawk. Thousands of pounds, untold misery. You can't sell the damn things. It's not right. Bob's in Clapham. Hello, Bob.
Hi, Andrew.
Hello. We're talking about cladding.
Yeah, I'm a property broker, and I work in a pocket of London that has so many of these buildings that are affected, so relatively modern, tall buildings. And I can tell you there was a caller earlier, Alex, where he had that £12,000 a year bill. That is not uncommon. We hear it every single day, and it is the most incredible situation that's developed from something that the government just pushed out very, very quickly. It's not law. They're just guidelines. But when the insurance companies jumped on it and realised that if something happened, they would have to pay a lot of money in damages, they kind of blocked everything.
What's the way out, Bob? What's the way out for people who are stuck in these buildings, not sure whether the cladding that's around their buildings is safe or not? They've got properties which are costing them a vast amount of money, which are difficult to mortgage, which are impossible to sell. What is the way out? I mean, it seems to me the only way out is to get that cladding off.
Well, Andrew, it's not just cladding, you see. It's you could have a 19-metre brick-built building that will still fail the EWS1 because it's not just cladding. It's to do with the cavities, the insulation, the air gaps around the building. It's lots of different things. So we deal with many buildings that if you look at them, you'd say, well, that's not affected. That's brick-built.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they've failed the EWS1, and therefore they're not mortgageable. They have a zero value. So they can't be bought or sold.
Yeah. I mean, people are under a big stress at the moment, Bob. I mean, this is a terrible situation. Your number one asset, the place where you live, where you rest your head. Maybe you've got a young family. You can't move.
It's Andrew, I can't express to you how much it's affecting people.
Oh, sure.
It's ridiculous. Our agency has lost probably 10 sales in the last 6 months because of it. The sellers are completely trapped and need to move for very, very important reasons, and they just simply have to be there.
Yeah, and Bob, thank you very much indeed for bringing your experience to bear in the sector. Continue to talk about the cladding crisis, this £5 billion fund which the government may or may not announce in the coming week. Does this represent some sort of a progress? I do hope so. Steve's in Greenwich. Hello, Steve.
Hello there.
Hi. Are you affected by this?
Yes, we have a £30 million cladding bill and a £3,000 a year increase on our service charge per flat.
Oh my God.
Which is very worrying.
So a £30 million cladding bill?
Yes. And that's just indicative. Whether that includes VAT or whether it goes up or not is another matter. And to make matters worse, on February the 1st, the type of cladding we have was banned in Victoria in Australia after a test showed that EPS cladding, which is that non-ACM category that Will referred to, stated that it's as dangerous as the Grenfell ACM cladding. Now, our government has refused to test EPS in 2020 when asked by multiple fire sources and fire experts to do it because they claim it wasn't. Well, this test kind of blows that out the wall.
Steve, how are you coping with this uncertainty? The service bill's huge, the bill for replacing the cladding running into millions, and how many people are in your block?
Well, probably about 1,000. We've got about 418 flats and roughly 2 per flat.
Big development.
Yeah, about 1,000. And we've had to talk someone down from suicide last week. We have people on antidepressants. We have GP letters going in. Nationally, we've had 2 reported suicides. The government are actively legislating to cause our mental health to deteriorate by pushing through the building safety bill, which is going to legislate to push all legacy building safety costs, not just cladding, everything onto leaseholders to protect the construction industry for their previous crimes.
Yeah, okay. I was going to ask where the finger of blame should point and the finger of the responsibility lies. And you're saying the people who built the buildings. How old is yours?
Well, ours is unfortunately built in 2002, which means we're locked out of any legal remedy because we can find serious faults at construction time, but we can't have any legal remedy because the Defective Premises Act has got a limitation period of 6 years, which means if you build something it could kill you after 6 years, you can't get sued for it. So, we're campaigning actively with Parliament to change that. But we also think we need a comprehensive solution. So we think Parliament need to take on all the risk, underwrite the extra risk of these huge 600% insurance premiums, pay for all the waking watch to start putting money into the service charge accounts, and then pay for the remediation. But they critically need to manage the work because we may have 10,000 buildings on our hand. It needs to be centrally managed.
Oh, huge.
And then instead of giving out pots of money, which people may or not be successful for, they handle the remediation as part of that and then go after those responsible. But critically, we do not have to pay anything.
No, Steve, I believe me, this is the place to try and follow this and get your message out. It really is, and I'm sorry that you're going through all of this. Steve, thank you very much indeed.
No worries.
Amazing detail. Julie, we only have half a minute or so in Runcorn. I believe you're a new caller. Thank you so much for calling. How are you?
Yes, I'm well, thank you.
Great.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, you first. You're affected by the cladding issues, aren't you?
I certainly am, but my building is one of 6 in a development. 3 are eligible for the building safety fund, 3 are not. One of those is my building. We have HVL cladding and timber. Our insurance has risen over 1,400% in the last 2 years. Yeah. It's an absolute nightmare. So although the building is under 18 metres, doesn't qualify for the fund, we will still have to pay for remediation.
And you can't sell it?
No. It's worth 0.
Oh, Julie, thank you for calling. It's an absolute nightmare.